So in this video, we hear one of the ex-members of Carbon Nation accusing Bishop of SA. Yes, besides Janae, we have another person accusing him of SA. Now, the bigger question is, can she prove it? Let's begin with the state's attorney, the prosecutor, asking her questions. Let's go.
Yes, sir. And when did you first learn about Mr. Bishop? In around February 2017. How old would you have been at that point? 19. How did you learn about him? I came across one of his videos on Facebook. What was going on in your life at that time? At the time, I was on like a spiritual journey, seeking, basically like on a spiritual journey. Okay. And where were you living at that point? At that point, I was in North Carolina. What were your impressions of the video that you saw online of Mr. Bishop? At the time, since I was in a space of seeking and spirituality, his teachings resonated with me at the time. How so? Just natural living, connecting to nature, being vegan. It was all things that I was aligning with at the time in my life. And when did you leave home to go and stay with the group for the first time? April of 2017. About 3 months after you first started seeing the videos? Yes. And how long did you stay that first time? The first time I stayed for 2 days. And where was the group at that point? They were in Costa Rica. Did you ever go back? I did. And how long between when you left the first time to when you went back? I guess when you went there for the second time, how long did you stay out of the group? 3 years. So it would have been, was it sometime in 2020 when you went back? Yes, sir. Do you remember what month? Around the same time, April of 2020.
So Velvet was right. A lot of people were leaving and coming back. Although they know the treatment was bad, they were still returning.
So would you have been about 22 at that point? Yes. And what was going on in your life in those 3 years between the first time you went and when you went back? Around the same thing. Since at the time, I wasn't a part of the group, but I was still following teachings, watching his videos, and keeping up with everything that was going on in the group. So I was still on this spiritual journey and wanting to live in community.
Incidentally, this recording is from Nick at Night. She's covering the case, so I have decided to get the audios from her channel, and then I'll do my commentary off of those recordings.
And what drew you back to them? I formed a relationship with one of the members. Okay. And what was that person's name? Mente, and the group, his actual name is Jacob. Okay. And was that an in-person relationship at first, or was that over the internet, or how did you all communicate? It was over the internet. And was Jacob a part of the group? Yes. And when you rejoined the group in 2020, where were they located? In Atlanta, Georgia. And about how many people were there? Maybe 15, 20. I'm not really sure the exact number, but at least 20. Or at least 15, yeah. And when you got there, I guess, how did you get from North Carolina to Atlanta? I was actually living in Atlanta at the time. Okay. When I joined the second time. Okay. And so, once you joined, what was that like? What were your first impressions? Everyone was very very welcoming. My first impressions the second time were like it was a good vibe. Like everything was good at first.
And how was before you joined the second time, did you really have a relationship with Mr. Bishop himself?
No.
And when you joined in 2020, what were your impressions of Eligio Bishop?
That he was the leader of the group, and that was my impressions.
Okay, and when you got there, were there rules?
Yes.
What were some of the rules?
One of the first rules for me is I wasn't allowed to speak to my partner at the time. We weren't allowed to be in a relationship.
And was that Jacob?
Yeah.
And where did that rule come from?
From Mr. Bishop.
And how are these rules enforced?
Right there, it should have been a red flag. If you go to a place like that, some type of commune, and the leader is telling you that the person that you went there with, your partner, you can't be with that person, that should have been a red flag.
We weren't allowed to talk virtually or in person. Everyone was dispersed. I was sleeping upstairs in the house that we were at on the floor by his room.
And if someone didn't like a rule or didn't agree with it, were they able to say no?
No.
What would happen if you did?
You would have to leave. There would be meetings. I've seen people in closets. There was different. It really depended on the time and what was going on at the time.
And what was Mr. Bishop known by?
Baba G. That was his name when I was there.
Okay.
Yeah. And at a certain time, he wanted us to call him. I know there was Chief, and then
How did the defendant refer to the world outside of the group?
Babylon, Hill.
And were you able to maintain communication with family and friends on the outside?
There was only one time, but it was because of resources, to get resources.
When you say resources, what do you mean?
Money.
Judge, this might be an appropriate time for the limiting instruction pertaining to 413.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes evidence is admitted for a limited purpose or for some counts and not others. Such evidence may be considered by the jury for the sole issue or purpose, and only for the counts for which the evidence is limited and not for any other purpose. In order to prove its case in count 1 rape, the state has offered evidence of other offenses of sexual assault allegedly committed by the accused. You are permitted to consider that evidence for its bearing on any matter to which you find it to be relevant. The defendant is on trial for the offenses charged in this bill of indictment only, and not for any other acts, even though such acts may incidentally be criminal. Before you may consider any other alleged acts, you must first determine whether the accused committed the other alleged acts, and whether such acts were in fact acts of sexual assault. If so, you must then determine whether the acts shed any light on the elements of the crimes charged in the indictment in this trial. Such evidence is at most supporting evidence of some issues and may not by itself be the basis of conviction for the case on trial. By giving this instruction, the court in no way suggests to you that the defendant has or has not committed any other acts, nor whether such acts, if committed, prove anything. This is solely a matter for your determination. Go ahead.
So that was the judge instructing the jurors.
Brianna, did anything happen that during your time in the group that made you believe the defendant had developed a sexual interest in you?
At a certain point, yes.
How long after you went back did you start to notice that?
Right before I left. So I think it was like at month 5 or 6.
Okay. And was the group still in Atlanta at that point?
No, we were in Mexico, in Cancun, Mexico.
Okay. defendant's interest for a sexual relationship?
No.
And were you able to express your feelings to the defendant?
We never had that type of relationship to where it was, I never wanted to be in a relationship with him because I was already in one.
Okay. Did you talk about that with Mr. Bishop?
No. At the time, all the women were put in a position where we were separated from the men, and he claimed that we all had to be his wife. So there wasn't really a conversation, it was more so...
And did he ever act on his sexual interest in you?
Yes.
And where were you all at that point?
In Cancun, Mexico.
And what was the living situation in Cancun?
We were in an Airbnb. All the women with him, and then all the men were in another one.
Okay. And what happened?
So it was at a time where he wanted us to approach him a certain way by calling him my king. There was a time where I was called to the room and I didn't approach him the way he wanted me to, so he made me do squats, which was kind of like a punishment if you were out of line. And he made one of his wives leave the room, and from there, it led to him raping me.
So one of his wives, what was that person's name? Do you know?
Velvet.
And so Velvet left the room, and what happened next?
The door was closed, and then he came on to me.
What did he do?
He raped me angrily.
And when Velvet left the room, were your clothes on?
Yes.
And did they stay on?
I don't remember.
Okay. And once she left, where were you in the room?
I was standing by the door at first, and then after she left is when he called me over to him.
Okay. And what did...
So I suspect that after this trial is over, maybe some more women are going to file SA charges, because so far I've heard 2 other women say that they were forced into having an intercourse relation with Bishop. It was not consensual. So I would not be surprised if there are more accusations after this trial.
He called you... Where was he?
He was laying on the bed at first.
Okay. And so he called you over. What happened after that?
I recall him asking me to give him oral, and then that led to him... I don't remember giving him oral or anything, but I remember him asking me, and then he got up off the bed, and then we ended up near the bathroom, and that's when the situation happened.
Okay. Near the bathroom, like on the floor or standing up?
On the floor.
And so at that point, what did he... You said the situation happened, and I'm sorry, but you had to, what did he do to your body?
He penetrated me
Overall,
Sorry, you can answer the question, Graham.
He penetrated me angrily.
And what were you doing at that point?
I feel like I was shut down at the moment. It was a time where he just separated me from our relationship, and I had just also, it was like a lot of tension in the house because I had also just witnessed the women jumping another woman, and yeah, in that moment I feel like I had shut down.
So it's a fine line, folks, between this polygamous relationship that these women knew they were involved in and not having control of giving consent. It's a very fine line. If you're going to be in a commune where polygamy is accepted, and that's on one hand, you accept that. You know it's polygamous and you might be involved in one or two relationships, and at any given time, 3 or 4 people may be involved with you at the same time. However, when it comes to intimacy that is supposed to be consensual, if you do not give consent, then it's considered the big R word. And if Eligio Bishop did penetrate this woman and took it by force, then it's considered the big R word. And yes, she can go after him and file a case against him like Janae did. Let's continue.
And were you injured as a result of that incident?
I was.
And can you describe that?
I was ripped.
And did you seek the assistance of any of the other members to treat those injuries?
I did. It was a moment after it happened that I went to the bathroom because I was in pain and bleeding. I'm not sure exactly which women came to help me, but there was a few that looked at it for me, and they confirmed that I was ripped.
So now you really have to ask yourself, when it comes to SA allegations, even if you are in a commune and you are aware that the leader is perpetrating this SA act on the women there, what is your responsibility to let the authorities know? Or do you have a responsibility? That is the question. I say you do have a responsibility. Like I said before, if it's not consensual, then it's considered a big R word. Even if you are in a commune and polygamy is accepted, if you did not give up consent, then it's considered a big R word. Even if, let's say, you're married in a relationship, you're in a relationship with your husband, you're married, and one night he says, honey, I feel frisky. And you say, well, you know what? You feel frisky on your own because I don't feel like it. I got a headache. And he said, well, you know what? I'm just going to take it. Then guess what? That's considered R word. It's considered a big R word. Yes, you can be married and still your husband can be accused of the big R word. I don't know if a lot of women knows that, but that's factual. So in this case, with this young woman testifying that he took her from behind and ripped her up and she was bleeding. So under the witness stand, she said she doesn't remember giving consent, or if she willingly went with him, because she can't remember. She can't remember the chronological order of events, and that's not unusual. When you're dealing with an SA victim, a lot of times they can't remember everything that happens because it happens so quickly. With a blink of an eye, it happens and then it's all over and you can't remember what happened in between. And so on the cross-examine, of course, she is saying that she can't remember because she really can't remember. It happens so quickly. But for her to say she was R, the big R word, tells me that at the time she thought she was SA'd. And this is why she's sticking to that storyline that he assaulted her. And so, although she can't remember chronological order of events, she do recall that she was SA'd. And that's good enough for me. I believe her because of the way she is testifying. It's believable. Let's continue.
You could say no to Mr. Bishop.
No. That's what I was referring to as far as I felt like I shut down in that moment when it was happening.
What do you think would have happened if you had tried to say no?
Well, if I'm now considered his wife, I really didn't know what to expect. I just know based off of how he's treated the other women that were his wives, that if they were not to submit to him, that it would end up in some type of abuse.
And that's another thing. What I wanted to address, the people who were aware, not are, but were aware that this was going on. These women who bore eyewitness and they saw the ripping of this woman's derriere and they confirmed, yes, you are torn. They should have reported it. The fact that they didn't, they're complicit. And they should have an accounting also because they were standing by and watch this go down with these young women. They were all young women. I don't think there were too many women 50 or even over 40, 50. There weren't too many. They were mostly young women, teenagers and young 20s. Let's continue.
That's just the mindset that I had in the moment.
After that happened, how many more days did you spend in his group?
Less than a week.
And did you report anything to the Mexican authorities?
No.
Well, she didn't report it, and that's understandable. Remember, she was in a foreign place. Mexico was not the place where she grew up or lived. She only lived there because Eligio Bishop, because of him, and he was on the move from place to place as they got kicked out. I think she said she was from one of the Carolinas, right? So that was a foreign place to her. For her to report it to the Mexican police, she would have had to stay there and press charges and testify, etc. And she didn't have that type of money to go probably live on her own. Because remember, a lot of their monies and assets were taken from them as soon as they got there. All she wanted to do probably, I'm assuming, was to get back to her hometown and forget this even happened. A lot of times victims do that. They want to just get out of the situation, go back to wherever they feel comfort and safe, away from the perpetrator, in this case, Bishop and his followers, because they all, the women, that is, knew that it had happened. They did nothing. They didn't report it. They didn't stop it. I'm sure some of them probably heard her screaming or crying, because I would imagine to be torn, it's a lot of pain. When you're torn and blood coming and all of that, you are screaming. Trust and believe you're not going to be whimpering quietly. You're going to be screaming. So I'm sure the women heard the screams, but they did nothing. And Velvet, she said, walked out the room just before it happened. So I'm sure Miss Nosy, Velvet, probably was listening because she knew everything that was happening. She pretends to be a victim now, but we know that she was in step with what was happening to these women, because they were treating her like a queen, like a goddess, because he was king and she was queen. Let's not get it twisted. She had some benefits. This is why she returned about 3 or 4 times. Let's continue.
Did you report anything to authorities here in America?
Not until this case started.
Okay. I caught that. I don't know if you guys caught that. She said, not until this case started. When he asked the question, did you report anything to the authorities here in America? She said, no, not until this case started. So that tells me there's probably going to be another trial, and there should be. I think she probably got enough nerve, muster enough nerve up to come forth and report it. But the perpetrator should never get away with crimes like this. people should always report any type of R allegations, because when you don't report it, you only leave the person to do it to somebody else. And with Eligio Bishop, if one case is not going to find him guilty, I'm sure a case like this would find him guilty, because remember, with Janae and Velvet, they kept going back. So their case may not be as strong as this one. In this particular case, he took it clearly. She said he took it by force. She was torn. She was bleeding. And there were witnesses. Several of the women came in the bathroom to assist her to make sure she was okay, examined her anus, and realized that she was torn, and even told her that she was ripped. So she have witnesses. She might not be able to remember them, but she have witnesses. And I'm sure if Velvet is put on a witness stand, she can recall those names, or if any one of them are questioned. They will give up whoever it is was there. I'm sure Malia was there because she's in everything. This is a strong case. So if she did file, she said, not until this case popped up did I go to authorities. So I'm sure she's going to press charges. I am sure of it. I hope so anyway.
Witness abuse of other women. Are you referring to Velvet?
Velvet, mainly Velvet and Malia.
That's all the questions I have.
Well, she said mainly Velvet and Malia. I guess she was talking about the women who helped her and identify the problem that she was torn. And those are the two culprits, especially that Malia, no matter what Eligio Bishop did, she would co-sign on. It didn't matter what it was, which I don't know what it is with Malia, that she's stuck on stupid and she's still waiting on him to get out. It's really sad, I would say sad, that she cannot see the forest from the trees when it comes to Eligio Bishop. Let's continue.
So, David, say how you doing?
Good.
All right, my name is Robert Booker. I represent Mr. Bishop. Just a couple questions for you. All right, so I think you indicated on your direct examination in February 2017 that you were on a spiritual journey and that you went to Puerto Rico. Where did you go in February 2017?
So this is the Nature Boy's attorney doing the cross.
Costa Rica. And that was the first time you met Mr. Bishop, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And where were they staying in Costa Rica?
At an Airbnb.
Okay, where?
When I first got there, they were traveling to different waterfalls, so we were at a water. When I arrived, we went straight to where they were at a waterfall.
How
They were camping there.
Sorry, court reporter. All right. I have to say something before I let you talk, and vice versa. That way, the court reporter's not mad at both of us. All right. So you went and stayed at an Airbnb in Costa Rica.
Yes.
Okay. And there were other people there.
Yes.
How did you get there?
I flew there.
You flew there. Where'd you fly from?
North Carolina.
Okay. And who paid for you to go?
One of the former members.
And who was that?
Philip Goss.
Philip who?
Philip Goss.
Oh, so Philip Goss paid for you to go to Costa Rica.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And when you got there, you said you joined. What do you mean by join? Was there something to sign, or you just by showing up you joined?
By showing up, I joined.
Okay. All right. And so you guys, did they meet you at the airport?
It wasn't Nick. It was just Philip.
Oh, just
He
Philip.
came to get me from the airport, and then we went
Okay.
to where they were.
Okay. Which was an Airbnb.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no. We weren't at the Airbnb yet. We went straight to where they were camping.
Okay. To a camping location.
Yes.
Okay. And then later was an Airbnb.
Yes.
How long were you there in Costa Rica?
For the all together, a month, but with the group, only 2 days.
So you were in Costa Rica for a month. So if it was a 30-day month, 28 days, you were away from them, and 2 days you were with them?
Yeah.
Okay. Where were you at for the other 28 days?
I was at one of my friends' land.
Who?
Her name is Blakely. She's somebody that I had met, and she had land in Costa Rica.
Okay, so for 28 days of the month, you're with Blakely, your friend who you just met and went to Costa Rica to see.
No, I originally went to Costa Rica to join the group. But when I got there, he mentioned that I wasn't ready. So I ended up leaving to go to Blakely's.
Who was he?
Mr. Bishop.
So he, essentially, you were not able to join the group because he told you you couldn't.
Yes.
Okay, so you get there, you can't join the group, go somewhere else, you stay somewhere else.
Yes.
Okay, so you're there 2 days.
Yes.
2 days and 2 nights, or 3 days and 2 nights, or how?
2 days, 2 nights.
Okay, so if you got there on a Monday morning, you stayed there all day Monday, all day Tuesday, and left on a Wednesday. Does that sound right? Okay, so you're there 2 days, so 48 hours basically, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what did y'all do for those 2 days?
Like I said, we were at the waterfall for the first day.
Sorry.
And then after that, we went to the Airbnb. I just recall having a meeting. In that meeting, it was decided that I wasn't to stay.
Okay, so in the 1 day that you were at the Airbnb, you were in a meeting where it was decided that, hey, this girl can't be here. You went somewhere else.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And that was your time in Costa Rica. You left after that. Where'd you go to?
After Costa Rica?
Yes, ma'am.
I went to California
To work. What were you doing in California?
I worked on a farm there.
On a farm. Did you have family there?
No.
Did you stay in contact with your family?
Kinda not. At the time, I wasn't close to my family.
Okay. So you were not talking to your family in California for the most part?
No.
Okay. Your mom and dad didn't know where you were?
They knew where I was, yes.
But you didn't stay in contact with them on a regular basis?
No.
Okay. And how long were you in California for?
At least a year.
Okay. So approximately a year. Okay.
Yes.
When is the next time that you see that you get in contact with Eligio Bishop and this group of people? After that?
I'm pretty sure there was some type of contact in between going back. I just don't recall, but for sure it was in 2020.
Okay. And where were they at in 2020?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay. And how long were you with them in 2020?
Almost 6 months.
Okay. And was that all here in Atlanta?
No.
Where else did you spend time at?
We were in Hawaii, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and Mexico.
Okay. Hawaii, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and Mexico. Okay. And that was all over a 6-month time frame.
Yes.
How long were you in Hawaii for?
Just I can't remember. I think like a week because we ended up in jail.
Okay. A week? All of you?
Maybe a week and a few days. Yeah.
Okay. All of you went to jail?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Las Vegas, how long were you there?
A few months.
A few months.
I don't know the exact numbers.
Okay. Less than 6 months, actually, right?
Yes.
Okay. How about in Los Angeles? How long were you there?
Just a few weeks.
A few weeks. And in Mexico?
I was there maybe 2 weeks.
Maybe 2 weeks. Okay. And was Mr. Bishop with you guys all that time?
Yes.
Everybody was together?
Yes.
Okay. And your living arrangements in Hawaii, how did you live there?
In Hawaii, at first we were in an Airbnb.
Okay, so in Hawaii you were in an Airbnb?
Yes.
Okay. And was it, how many people were there in Hawaii?
Like 20.
20? So 20 people in an Airbnb?
Yes.
Okay. Males and females?
Yes.
Okay. All in one big place?
Yes.
Okay. And Las Vegas, 20 people as well?
Yes.
How were you staying there?
We all lived in one house together.
One house. Everybody, all males and females in the same house?
Yes.
Okay. All right. What about Los Angeles?
We lived in an apartment there.
20 people in an apartment?
Yeah.
Sounds like some tight living.
It was.
Okay. All right. And in Mexico?
That's when we were separated. We had 2 different houses for the women and then the men.
One for the women and one for the men. But out of this 6 months, based on your testimony, only 2 weeks out of the 6 months were men and women separated, right?
At a time, I think in Atlanta, when I first got there, the men were downstairs and the women were upstairs. So
Okay.
it was kind of like that.
It would be hard to do that in an apartment with 20 people, right?
We weren't separated then.
Okay.
We were allowed to be
in our relationship at the time.
Okay, so in Hawaii and in Las Vegas, you were allowed to be with your partner as well.
Yes.
Okay, so it wasn't other than the time here in Atlanta or the 2 weeks that were in Mexico that it was not allowed to be with your partner.
Yes.
All right. Now, prior to this case, it being ever heard of, you had never given a statement to law enforcement, had you?
No.
You've never been interviewed by law enforcement before?
No.
You never made a police report?
No.
You never let anybody know your involvement with this group at all, right?
Not as far as the law enforcement know.
Okay. And so after the 6 months that you spent between Hawaii, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Mexico, and Atlanta in 2020, was that the only time you spent around the group?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, the state asked you what would happen if people disagreed with Mr. Bishop, and your response was that they would have to leave, or there would be meetings, or sometimes you saw people in closets, is what I wrote down that you said. So, if people were in disagreement, it was a hit the bricks, get out? Based on your statement you
There would always be a meeting first. It wasn't like a right away thing.
Okay. All right.
I feel like in the meetings it was discussed whether or not it was appropriate for someone to leave.
Okay. And then the response was if it didn't work out in the meetings, they were going to leave. Is that correct?
It really depended on who the person was.
Okay, depending on the person. Okay. And so based on the meeting would determine whether or not the person would left or whether or not they were going to be begged to stay or anything along those lines. Is that correct? Okay. All right. You indicated that in Cancun, Mexico, that your statement to the district attorney was that Mr. Bishop raped you, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So in Mexico, you indicated that you were there for about 2 weeks. That was the last 2 weeks you were around the group, right?
Yes.
This was an Airbnb. Was it describe the Airbnb for me? What did it look like?
It was an apartment. You walked in, there was stairs to the left, and then there was a balcony. I just remember the stairs going up, there's a balcony, and then there's an outside area. I think that's all I remember.
Okay. When you say an apartment, are you talking like a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment?
How many bedrooms? I think it was like 3 bedrooms.
A 3 bedroom apartment in Mexico?
Yes.
Okay. How many people were staying in each bedroom?
It was just the women. Maybe there was like 6, 7 of us.
Okay. And the men were staying outside?
They were at another area.
Oh, so the men were in a separate apartment?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And so you indicated that in this apartment, who was there on the day that this happened to you outside of yourself?
Just the women in Mr. Bishop.
Okay. And who were the women that were in the group at the time?
You want me to say names?
Yes, ma'am.
Honor, Aya, Malia, Efaru. That's all.
Okay. Efaru, yes. Okay. So I'm going to repeat those people back to you. Honor is a female?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Aya.
And Zoka, sorry.
And Zoka? Okay. So, Velvet, Honor, Aya, Malia, Efaru, and Zoka were all there?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And so they wanted, Mr. Bishop, according to your testimony, wanted people to approach him as king.
Yes.
Right? And so is this apartment, are all the bedrooms on the second floor?
Yes.
Okay, so was everybody around when he told you, hey, don't approach me, whatever way you said that you didn't?
Only person that was around at this time was Velvet. Everyone else was either in downstairs or wherever, like another room.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, not including yourself or Mr. Bishop. So 9 people in a 3-bedroom apartment. And the only person around for this was who?
Velvet.
Velvet. Okay. All right. And where was this located? On the second floor of the house?
Yes.
Okay. And Velvet and Mr. Bishop were in a bedroom together?
Yes.
Okay. And you came inside the bedroom?
Yes.
Okay. Where was he sitting in the bedroom?
He was sitting on the bed.
On the bed. All right. And so, why did Velvet leave the room?
Because he asked her to.
He said, "Hey, Velvet, get out here. You can go."
Yes.
Is that right? And you come in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah. Do you close the door? Leave the door open? What do you do when you get into the room?
She closes the door.
She closed the door behind you. Okay. All right. And she obviously will remember this as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And so she closed the door. Does this room have a bathroom in it?
It does.
Okay.
It was like an open, like the bathroom's inside the room.
Okay. All right. And so Mr. Bishop, is he on the bed standing up? What is he doing?
He's on the bed.
Okay. How is he dressed?
He was in a robe.
He's in a robe. What time of day is it?
Midday.
Midday.
Well, it looks like if it was a climate set for essaying these young women whenever he chose to do so. And Velvet allegedly was aware of the situation because this young woman is saying that she closed the door and left her in there with Eligio Bishop, who commenced to essay her. And we heard another testimony where the young woman said that Velvet was asked to hold her hand while Mr. Bishop took her virginity. And Velvet was reluctant in doing it at first, but she did do it. And so all these things Velvet was well aware of. And now she is perpetrating like if she was so innocent, when in fact she was, in a lot of these instances, his assistant. Let's continue.
Maybe even like around, I'm not sure the exact time.
Okay. All right. And so he's in a robe, and at that point, do you get undressed or he takes his clothes off?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you remember what you were wearing?
No.
Okay. Do you remember?
I just know that for sure we mainly wore dresses and skirts, so it had to be one of the clothes.
Okay. But you don't know if he took your clothes off or if you took your clothes off?
No.
Okay. Do you know if a condom was used?
No.
Okay.
You got now or no? It wasn't used.
No condom was used?
No.
Okay. And do you know if was anything said to you or did you say anything to him during that time frame?
I don't remember.
Okay.
The conversation.
You don't remember? No. So you don't know if you ever said, "Hey, don't do that to me"?
No.
Okay. You don't remember conversating with him at all?
I don't remember there being a conversation.
Okay.
Well, it's quite possible that when you go through anything traumatic in life, especially in SA, the big R word, that you don't remember, you block everything out because it's so traumatic. We've heard of several cases in the past like this. Throughout the years, it happens to people where they get SA, they don't know, they can't recall the before, during, and after, especially the during the course of the SA. They can't remember events. Did they take their clothes off? Was it requested? Did they do it voluntarily upon request? Was it ripped off? They really can't remember any of it. She said she was wearing a skirt. So it's easy for me to think, it's not within the rationale to think that maybe he just pulled the skirt up. She didn't have to take her clothes off. Because she can't recall even putting on the clothes, taking off the clothes. If he did it, she did it. So in my rational chain of thought, I'm thinking because she had a skirt on, no stockings, it was easy for him to pull that skirt up and penetrate that way without her even taking her clothes off. Let's continue.
And so at that point, there is some sort of sexual act in that bedroom or bathroom?
Yes.
Okay. Do you get dressed after that?
I remember him asking me to take a shower afterwards.
Okay.
In the same bedroom.
Take a shower. Okay. And after you took a shower, what did you do then?
I went straight to the other bathroom because I learned that I was bleeding.
Okay. And who else was in the other bedroom then?
In the bedroom?
The other bedroom.
The other.
Where you went to when you learned you were bleeding, who was in that room?
It wasn't a room, it was just a bathroom.
In the other bathroom, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Who was in?
There was nobody at first, but then I don't remember the exact women, but there was a few that came inside the bathroom to check on me.
You don't know their names?
I don't remember exactly which ones it was.
Okay. How many do you think came in?
It was like 3.
3 women? Okay. All right. Can you discuss with them what it happened, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
And that's easy to find out. The women that were in the bathroom, all they have to do is question the women. She said it was about, 5 women or so. All they have to do is question them to see, to determine who was in the bathroom with her. And it only takes one confession or one admission, and then they would give up the others that were in the bathroom with her, because those are the witness. She said she was essayed, and she's got witnesses.
it wasn't a discussion. It was more so like they already knew what happened because I was bleeding.
Okay. So going back before that, I'm not trying to make you relive through this, but you indicated that he told you that you needed to do some squats, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so you indicated that you don't know if you ever told him no or not.
No.
You don't.
No, you didn't. No, you don't remember? Or no, you didn't tell him that.
I didn't.
Okay. So you don't know if he knew that you wanted to do it or that you didn't want to do it, right? Because you never said anything, right?
I didn't say no.
You didn't say no.
No.
Okay.
Well, she said she did not say no. So I guess my theory is just out the window. Because if you're in a man's room, he's got a bathrobe on, and he leads you to the bedroom or the bed or the bathroom or wherever and commence to have intercourse with you, and you don't say no, you don't object, you don't put up a fight, you do not resist in any way, then that man will assume that you're down with it, you're okay with it. So I guess she does not have a case. She says she filed a police report when this particular case, this trial started, but in my mind, she doesn't have a case because she said that she did not say no. She did not resist. She can't even remember if she took her clothes off. So she doesn't have a case in my mind. Drop your comments, folks. What are your thoughts? I'd love to know, because I know you guys are very opinionated out there. Let's get back to this this recording.
All right. And that was in 2020, during the 2 weeks that you were in Mexico.
Yes.
Now, you got married to someone that was actually in this group, correct?
I did.
And who was that?
It was Jacob.
Jacob. Okay. Was Jacob the guy that invited you down there, or that was someone else?
It was him.
So the same guy that invited you to Costa Rica?
No. He's the one who invited me while they were in Atlanta.
Okay. So a guy that invited you while they were in Atlanta in 2020, you got to know and you guys got married.
Yes.
Okay. And you're still married.
Technically, yes. We're not together.
Okay. All right. Have you ever given any former any YouTube statements about this case?
Not on YouTube, no.
Bigo or Bijo or something like that?
I talked about it briefly on Bigo, but it wasn't like in depth or anything.
Okay. About the case?
Not about the case. Okay. About the situation.
About the allegation that you're making?
Yes.
When did you do that?
After leaving. It was maybe like a month or so after that.
Okay. And that's something you did online?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then the last question I have for you, do you recall testifying in a prior hearing?
I'm sorry?
Do you recall testifying in a prior hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Do you disagree that, let me ask you this, in the prior hearing, you testified that Mr. Bishop never told you directly or indirectly that you couldn't leave or anything along those lines. Do you disagree with that statement?
I don't disagree.
Okay. Thank you.
So I don't know about these witnesses. They're not helping the case. She was supposed to be with the prosecuting team, wasn't she? But by her testimony, I would say she didn't help matters much. She did not help to put the nail in the coffin. As a matter of fact, she exonerated Bishop by saying she can't remember if he took her clothes off, if she took her clothes off, if she gave consent or didn't give consent. You know, she beat around the bush to the point where she lost me. I'm telling you, she lost me. I had this all figured out that, yes, she was going to put the nail in the coffin. She filed charges when this case came out. And when the case started, as a matter of fact, that's what she said. She filed charges. But because you said you were bleeding and you were torn, but you said, talking to this young lady now, Jacob's wife, talking about her, that she said she don't know if she gave consent or not. She can't remember taking her clothes off or if he did it. She can't remember anything. I said, well, you know what? It must be the trauma from the experience that gave her amnesia. It's been known to happen. As far as I'm concerned, if you can't help the case, they shouldn't be putting people on who can't help them. So I don't know if Bishop is going to be going back to jail or if they're going to let him out. But let's continue.
Jacob, who ended up being your husband, he left the group with you, right?
Yes.
And the two of y'all were able to find your way out of Mexico.
Yes.
And did you get married to him before or after you all left the group?
Before. It was a few couples we all got married at the same time along with Mr. Bishop.
That was in Vegas?
Yes.
August 2020?
Yes.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Issue the excuse. Thank you so much.
Well, that was the end of her testimony. That was the end of the cross-examination. The judge broke for lunch, and it was a disappointment to me. Yes, it was, and she didn't do the case justice. I feel a kind of way, like if I'm taking it personal now. If you're going to get on the witness stand and you say somebody SAU, why you going to get up there and say you can't remember if you give consent or not? Obviously, if you're crying the big R word, you must not have given consent. Come on now. For her to sit there and say, well, I don't remember if I said, yes or no, or if he took my clothes off, or, it was very irritating. So she definitely did not help the case. Anyway, guys, on that note, if you guys want to weigh in, you're free to weigh in the comment section. I'm over and out. See you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching.